Hello and welcome to another segment of Western Wisconsin Journal. I'm Jamie Johnson, an attorney from the Lohman Abdo Law Firm here in Hudson, Wisconsin. And for my other job, I'm the government and political correspondent for Western Wisconsin Journal. Today, my guest is a candidate for the Hudson City Council, William Samas. Mr. Samas,
Thank you for having
welcome to the show.
me, Mr. Johnson.
Can I call you Bill?
No, and I'll tell you why.
Okay.
Because my dad's name is Bill, and I'm William. And
Very good.
That's kind of the way it's been for 30 years. So.
All right. Well, then we'll keep it William or Mr. Samas. But Samas, you said, rhymes with Thomas.
Rhymes with Thomas, that's right. William is just fine.
All right, very good. Well, you are running for District 6, and there's an incumbent, Joyce Hall, in that position, and I think she's running for her second term. Now, so let's start with your background. Tell me a little bit about your family, how long you've been a Hudson resident and so forth.
Been in Hudson for 16 years with my wife Margaret and my two sons. The eldest is Zachariah, the youngest is Luke, who's a freshman at the high school. And along with our immediate family, my parents live out near Bass Lake. My sister and her family live on the other side of Lake Malilu. My brother lives up near V&E, and my younger sister lives in St. Paul. We're all migrants from Chicago. We all ended up around the Hudson area.
Okay. And you said, how long have you been in Hudson then?
16 years.
16 years. And where did you said Chicago, so about when was it that you came to this area of the state?
Yeah, my wife and I got married in '92, immediately moved to southern Wisconsin, spent a couple of years there. She's a world-renowned opera singer and found it difficult to do her work from southern Wisconsin, so we needed to be near New York City. We moved there for 5 years, lived in New Jersey, and then our son, Zach, came to be 5, and we decided that we wanted our kids to be raised in the heartland. We didn't want them to be East Coast kids, and so we decided Wisconsin was the place for us, and we're very pleased that we made that decision.
How did you choose Hudson then?
My sister had moved up here with her husband because he's originally from Hudson. They were living in Chicago. They moved up here. My parents followed soon after that. My wife and I and Zachariah moved here in June of 2000, and my brother came up from Chicago the very same week, and then my younger sister moved back from Santa Monica that fall. So we all kind of coalesced around Hudson, and it's been a good thing for us.
Great. Well, tell me a little bit about your what you do for your day job, and what would be your qualifications or background to serve on the city council.
Okay. I am currently in my 4th year as a financial advisor with Prudential. I've had been blessed with a very varied career and had a lot of opportunities to do a lot of interesting things, and that whole knowledge base that was, has all coalesced in coming here now. I deal with people and their finances a lot in my
Is that what you've
business.
done predominantly since you come out of school?
Before coming to Prudential as a financial advisor, I was doing special projects for the military on a contract basis, logistics-oriented activities, particularly with Naval Sea Systems Command, a bit for the Air Force and a bit for the Army. Wonderful experience that was, and learned quite a lot about project management and how things get put together and all that. Prior to that, I was working in information management for pharmaceutical development companies in New Jersey. I also did a stint as a business analyst, driving around and analyzing companies and coming up with recommendations for their implementation. Before that, I was in the industrial machinery business. And I also have had stints through college and what have you as...
Where'd you go to college?
I went to Valparaiso University from Northwest Indiana.
Yep.
And
I looked at that school. And when was that you went to school there?
That was 80 through 85.
Okay.
And then I got my master's, my MBA from Keller Graduate School in '94.
So you must be about my age, about 54?
I will be 54 this year, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Right. Very good. So what do you find as in that background that you just described, the various occupations, vocations, what do you find as the qualifications or skills? Have you served ever before in a municipal capacity or in a
No, I don't. But what I bring is my experience as in business, and as a business analyst, I can read statements. I know what goes where in each line item, and I'm fairly adept at financial analysis. So I think this is a skill that translates well to being a good steward of taxpayers' resources. I can know what's on the documents. And
Sure. I understand the financial bit. Have you served on boards or been appointed as a representative to anything? Or
I've got quite a bit of involvement with the Boy Scouts. I've been, this is
why I
my,
was getting moving.
okay,
to it.
well,
All right.
this is my 11th year with Troop 213 out of the Methodist Church here in Hudson, and boards, committees, and what have you, and you understand the volunteer.
How long did you say you worked with Scouts?
11 years with the troop, and prior to that I was involved with my sons in Cub Scouts. So I guess it's almost 15 or 16 years involved in scouting.
Okay. And so this has been, it is kind of your springboard then to want to do some more service back to the community?
As we were chatting before, yeah, my youngest son is nearing his Eagle, and it's time for me to transition out into something else. And I want to continue to serve the community, and this seems like, it brings together my desire to be of service to people, my training and background, and I think it's a good fit for both myself and
So you
and
want
the board.
something to do after your youngest graduates from high school?
I always want something to do, and this
Yeah.
seems like a good way to serve.
Okay.
Yes.
So is there any issues or whether it's a vote that was taken by the current council or issues that are coming up that have motivated you? Are you coming with an agenda to this position?
No, nothing that you would say, you can put the term to it, that I have an axe to grind, no. But I do see things around town that I think
Sure.
need help. I think big issues for me, driving around town, it's getting hard. The traffic is really cumbersome. And taxes, I've just had a friend who had an $800 tax bill increase, not a tax bill, an $800 increase for the year. I'm concerned that we might be taxing some of our residents out of their homes, and I don't think that's the right thing to be doing at this time.
Okay.
So, and I'm getting the same reaction because I've walked the whole district and just meeting and introducing myself to people, and it seems to be the number two issues, taxes and traffic and road conditions. So I don't have an axe to grind, but those are issues about which
So you would like to
very
do
concerned.
something about that somewhere in the next 12 months if you're elected?
I would like to do something in a prudent time, yes. But I would like to get active on it in 12 months. Can it be solved in 12 months? Absolutely not. It can't be solved. But those are the issues that I would like to start addressing seriously. Yes.
Well, let's start getting into a little bit more areas. Like, okay, you mentioned taxes, and of course, taxes kind of have to match the spending. It's maybe not at the federal level, but certainly at the state and local, we need to balance our budgets.
Right.
And so in order to reduce taxes, you're going to have to reduce spending. So do you see areas where the city could reduce spending without reducing services?
I don't have access to the details, and once I have those details in front of me, then I can certainly come up with something, I'm sure. But I think the area is in efficiencies. Efficiencies can be gained by looking at doing things different ways. And but also, in addition to that, there's probably going to be a tax revenue increase as we look at the development of the dog track, which is very likely going to occur in some form or fashion. So we're going to see revenue increasing.
So that's the other way. You don't necessarily have to cut spending or cut services. You could allow the city to grow.
Allow the city to grow with control. Still maintaining the charm that we have here in Hudson without losing that, allowing it to grow, and then using some of that commercial tax revenue to abate some of the costs that homeowners are facing.
Okay. So talking about the city's plan, whether it's the comprehensive plan, we got two different thoughts here, because you mentioned about the roads and traffic. And so what do you think of the city's plan for the infrastructure as far as maintenance and improvement of the infrastructure?
Well, which plan are we talking about? I mean, there's streets, there's sidewalk development, there's wastewater and treatment plant. I'm just saying there are quite a number of plans out there. And the city's plans, we've got great professionals in place. We've got Denny Darnold at Community Development does a wonderful job. Tom Zuley at Public Works really is on top of his job. He does that really well, and their plans are detailed and specific. I haven't seen all of them, but at a high level, I've taken a look at them. So I can't really pass judgment and say that anything is not being done at that level. The question comes in, how does the council then implement those plans? And it's the council's job to make those difficult decisions. We want to do wonderful things. We want to put nice things in place for the residents and for visitors. But when you're dealing with finite amount of resources, who's going to make the challenging, difficult decisions?
Well, and I'm sure you've heard that there's going to be, basically shutting down the central part of the city with Highway 35 when State Road 35.
Isn't that going to be a challenge? Hopefully that'll come after the bridge is completed up at Holton. But that's a.
And it comes right after completing Vine Street. And I'm curious because you mentioned how you were doing doors. What seems to be the residents' response to Vine Street, which is kind of an experiment, if you will, on some major infrastructure renovation?
Right. By and large, the reaction is very positive, that they did a really, really nice job. And the complaint is that why did it take so long? Why did it take so long from start to end of the project, okay? And also, why did it take so long to get the project going? And I know there are myriad reasons why that was, and they all made sense, okay? Right. But this is some of the questions that I'm encountering when I introduce myself to folks.
And I'm sure you explain to the folks, when their top two concerns are taxes are too high and our roads and traffic need addressing. It takes money to be able to address those roads.
Right.
But you don't have any particular difference or disagreement with what the current 5-year plan is for road improvements here in Hudson.
Not that I can say from a cursory view. Okay. When I get down and study it, certainly I'll find something that I would disagree with. Is there something I would argue about? I don't know.
Okay, well, now let's move from infrastructure then to the comprehensive, the zoning, planning and zoning of how, Hudson has, in the course of filling up its third industrial park, and there's a lot of talk about how we're starting to, lose available land, whether it's commercial or residential, that there's not much. So do you think the city should continue in annexing land? Do you think that the comprehensive plan needs to be reviewed to identify prime areas for, fertile ground for the next annexation?
Yeah.
Extraterritorial zones is what I was trying to get at.
Okay. That's a term with which I'm not familiar until now. But growth is inevitable. But we want to do this wisely and in a controlled way. Annexation, I think, is something that probably needs to be looked at seriously and considered seriously, at least as a defensive measure. We've been talking about that before, that River Falls recently has been very aggressive in its annexation and expansion of its boundaries. And I think we want to perhaps, not be entirely growth-oriented, but we need to, defensively is the kind of the best term I can use, as we probably go south and look for new sources of revenue.
Well, we can't go west, we know that. We can't go north because of North Hudson is there. So, our choices are either east or south.
And again, I don't want this to turn to a megalopolis. I don't want it to be overrun with big box retailers and that sort of thing. I don't want to lose the charm. That's why we need to manage this wisely.
Sure, but we've got our main arteries, Vine and Carmichael, that get pretty stuffy when it gets to be 7 o'clock in the morning, 7:30.
Or 4 o'clock in the afternoon, try to cross that bridge. It's tough, yeah.
So what sort of redevelopment, now looking at downtown, and there's two big issues that are going on down there. One is we have Lakefront Park, and we've got this great resource, which is the river, and I know he's not new anymore, but our current mayor is quite a proponent of the river and sees it as a not just recreational, but also as a tourist attraction. So do you think that there's redevelopment opportunities there in and near Lakefront Park?
Absolutely, there are opportunities. But I love Lakefront Park. When the weather's warm, I ride my bicycle down there almost every day. It's a wonderful place to be, and it is quite a draw for people from the city and from the outside the city. It draws a lot of folks, as well as the wonderful restaurants that we have, and it's become a restaurant town. It's really enjoyable. So the downtown Hudson is quite the draw. We don't, in my mind, need to create more draw. We have plenty of draw. And the problem we have at this point is, what do we do with the cars for the people who are coming to visit town?
Yes,
So,
jumping ahead to the next subject, which is the parking. Yes.
right. So if we were to develop Lakefront and draw more people into town, we don't have room to put their cars. So to talk about Lakefront development immediately, I think, is kind of putting the cart before the horse. We can't handle more people coming to town.
Okay.
When we can handle the people coming to town, then I think the next step is prudent lakefront development in a controlled way.
Okay.
Those are my preliminary thoughts on it, not having studied the issue in great depth.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
Or?
Well, I understand. Yeah, I think the mayor is thinking more in lines of like developing the pier and places for docks to be able to, moor their boats.
Right.
Tie up. and
I'm not opposed to it in principle.
Yeah.
Let's do it wisely, though.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
All right. So, what about the downtown parking issue? They've had, they commissioned a big study, and that's got some conclusions that I know the city is still looking at. But do you have personal opinion on that, or do you have some sense of what you're hearing residents, what they would like to see, whether it's a parking ramp or whether, higher fees for meters or?
Yeah, in my walks around town, I've never heard anyone say put a higher fee on a meter.
Yeah.
And that would be probably the third most talked about issue when people bring things up is parking downtown. I hear very few specific solutions, just solve the parking problem from the constituency. There's not a lot of land down there, so we can't go this way. I think the only way to solve it is to go up, and that means some sort of parking ramp. Where is the wisest place? I think studies are probably going to reveal where that or those will be. What's the sort of feeling that you've got on that?
Well, I don't know. I see different. I happen not to be a city resident, but I'm definitely a consumer of the restaurants, and I think people will, depending on what the fee is, that they tend to park. If it's a reasonable fee, then they're going to, if it's too low, they're going to try and get as close as possible. If you raise it up a little bit, then people, all of a sudden, they start a tendency to maybe park 3-4 blocks away, and it's worth them to walk. When you do that, you tend to spread out so that there's somewhat less competition. But I still think it's going to be mostly a first come, first serve. And that's what I'm most frustrated by, because if I don't leave work early, just getting a parking space near the restaurant where you want to go can be a challenge.
You come to dinner at 5 p.m. and you can probably find a space, but by 5:30,
that's right.
It's tough. Yes.
Yep. Yeah. So, what other issues do you think that the city should be addressing? I mean, we kind of hit on the roads, the parking, but is there others that you would like to see the city council addressing?
Jamie, like we said before, the big things that I see are taxes, traffic, and road conditions, and parking. Those are the big issues that I see. Again, I'm getting very little from folks around that I'm meeting with that would rise to the level of those three.
Right.
So.
Now, I can't speak as an expert. I mean, just what I've read in the papers and a little bit in talking with our mayor. But the redevelopment at the dog track, does that sound like something that you're behind? What do you know about that? And do you see that as a big potential for tax relief for our residents?
Yes, the project seems to be well along and very likely to go forward. It's just not. With the people I'm talking to, very few will mention that as a big issue. But yeah, that will likely be a vast source of revenue for the city, and thankfully the mayor and the city council at the time preserved that source of revenue, so that now that when it's ready to come on stream here in the next couple of years, it's going to be available for the city. So my concern about that, about the whole development, is that it doesn't harm the Hudson that we know and love. And I don't want to overdevelop it and turn it into, I'm not going to throw out any names of any other cities that we don't like because of the way they haven't managed growth well. But we all know places like that. The town I came from in Illinois, it used to be cornfields. Now it's big box retailers for miles, and I don't like to go back anymore. It's hard to recognize. So I don't want us to go down that path. So development is inevitable, growth is inevitable. Let's do it in a way that's beautiful. Right?
And as far as from the services, I'm thinking one that was in the news quite a bit, not so much in the last election cycle, but going back a couple, was the library. And you've been in town, 16 years, so definitely when the library moved from this building, there was a lot of talk about that and, the finance. Have you looked into that much?
I have not. I love the library. I was a homeschool dad, homeschooled both my boys until they mainstreamed in middle school. So we spent hours in both this building when the library was here and in what I call the new library downtown. And the one we have now is just a beautiful, beautiful facility. How to solve the funding problem? I don't know. I don't know how to fix that problem. There are ways, but I need to study that more and become more knowledgeable on the details of that. So I don't want to speak out of turn on how to solve it. It's a wonderful place. I'd like to see it stay. How do we fix it?
And then when we're talking about our fire and EMS is talking about a big transition here with having that being taken over by the hospital, I believe, or the hospital. And now with the fire station, there's a lot of talk about what to do there, because you've got the downtown area and then you've got, of course, the hill and all the development south of the interstate. So is that something that you think is inevitable and something that would benefit the city by having maybe a satellite location for the firehouse?
That's not the only topic as far as public safety is concerned. There are discussions also about a new public safety building, both a combined police chase station and fire station facility in one. Something's going to happen. Where it's going to be, how vast it's going to be, I hesitate to speculate at this point. I think, again, I want to see some real plans and some real numbers before I go too far on
all right. Well, there's a lot of subcommittees and boards that are, when you get on the city council, that you either get appointed to or can be appointed to. There's this cable station that we're here at, filming here. We mentioned the library board. There's our parks, planning and zoning, there's public safety, and even the liaison to the school district. Is there any particular area that, if you were to be elected, draws your interest in what you would ask the mayor to be appointed to?
Yeah, the first thing I want to say is I just want to learn my way through it, starting and working my way up through that. But the one that you mentioned there about planning and zoning, that is a curiosity that I have. Okay. So I wouldn't mind serving on that committee and seeing how I can contribute.
Okay, yeah, that's again, they do a lot of work and made up of a couple council members, but mostly other citizens who have vast experience and history with the city, and so yeah, there's opportunity for extra meetings other than just the city council.
Yes.
Great. Well, with that, did we miss any of your qualifications or background that you wanted to touch on? We're very near the end of our time.
You've been very generous with your time, and I think I highlighted it. I could go into deep detail, and I don't think that's necessary or interesting right now.
So after this interview, you're going to get back out there and knock on more doors, huh?
Not today. That's coming up on this weekend, but it's going to be a frigid door knocking this weekend in the 20s.
Well, it's March. Just wait a couple days. It might be 40 degrees warmer. Right. So anyway, well, William, thank you for coming on the show. We've been talking to William Samas, who is a challenger for District 6 here in Hudson, and that election is April 4th, correct?
April 4th, yes.
All right, very good. Well, good luck with that, and want to thank our viewers for watching another segment of Western Wisconsin Journal. I'm Jamie Johnson, and we'll be seeing you in the future.